Few people asked me where the boxes of Kleenex were on the tables. Mental note. We've all had teachers who have changed our lives, people who have made a big difference. To this gentleman that we're about to hear from, it was this particular teacher. He will tell you that today he should be dead or in jail, but he is here to join us and to share his experiences. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mark Anthony Garrett.
Right. For those of us who understand what it is and why it is we do what we do, the one thing I want you to realize is that every one of you here is significant. Everybody say, I am significant. What I do matters. There are no mistakes in the world, ladies and gentlemen, and the probability of me standing here is impossible. The probability of me being here is one that should not have happened, but it did because somebody told me that it was possible. For those of you who serve in this great capacity, those of you who serve children, those of you who have been given a gift, and I believe that everything that we do in this arena of child welfare is not by accident. I believe that sometimes you do not choose your job. Sometimes your job or your profession chooses you. Because for many of us, if we truly ask why we do what we do, some of us could not consciously tell other people why we do what we do, because we don't understand why we do this. For some of us, we do it because it is a calling. It is something to do because we want to be of greater purpose and greater service to the world. My own personal opinion, I believe that we are here for two reasons. The first reason, we are here to understand why we are here, and then once we understand this thing called purpose, then we are to serve on purpose, because life is all about service. And I know we've been running through the day expeditiously, and I know that we don't have a lot of time here today, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you guys a promise. And I'm going to make you the same promise that my grandmother made her 8th husband. And that is simply, I will not keep you long. Some of you guys will get that later. But anyway, listen. First of all, I am not your typical type of speaker. I am not going to bore you with a bunch of statistics. That's not what I do. I am an optimist. I am a believer in never-ending possibilities. I am the one who believes in the impossible. And I think Lucas kind of talked about believing bigger than ourselves, because those of us who believe bigger in what it is we do are the ones who bring about the immense change that happens in the world. All of you that are here are special. You're unique. You're called to do this work, and you are here for a greater purpose and for a greater service than just going to work 8 hours a day, going home, watching Who Loves Raymond or whatever reality show that you want to watch, and doing it for 40 years and dying unfulfilled. Life is more than that. It is about significance. It is about purpose. It is about value. It is about why we are here. We're here to make a difference. We're here to matter. Because you know what? At the end of our life, we're going to ask ourselves one question. And it's not about the money. It's not about the house. It's not about the cars or the diamonds or the bling bling. All that we really realize at the end of our life, and the thing that we ask the most is, did I matter? What did I do? What did I contribute? What service was I to the world? You see, for me, it hits home because this is my life. This is what I do. As a professional speaker for 19 years, I thought when I first got into this arena of speaking that it was about the money, because I was young and I was naive. But I quickly realized that when I began to speak to people's hearts and emotions, and people would come up and thank me for my service, I understood quickly that the money is only the reciprocal of the greater service of what we do. Because in child welfare and what it is we do, there is no money. So let's get that straight. We don't do it for the money, especially in this arena, because it isn't there. Am I right? Is anybody getting rich doing this? Absolutely not. So the question becomes is, why do I do this? What is my greater sense of purpose? Why do I continue to work in this arena every day when the armchair theologians of the world tell us that what you do doesn't work? That kids like me cannot succeed. That kids like Lucas, that kids like Lydia will not be anything. The traumatic experience that Lucas had and you had and I had would simply say that we can't make it, but there was something, some type of resiliency, some type of belief, and people like you who have been given this gift to inspire kids like us. Even though I'm 44 years of age, I still sometimes consider myself a kid, because statistically I should not be here. I should be dead. But I'm here. I'm strong, and I'm still standing. Look, My goal for today is not for you to walk away from here saying, oh, what a great speaker we had, or Mark was this or that, or feeling sorry for me, or Lydia, or Lucas. This is not why we're here. We are here because you told us that we could. You're the reason, and you're responsible for our success. Without you, there would be no us. You have to realize that. So for those of you who do not believe in what it is you do, those of you who get beat down every day in this putrid system of negativity, and sometimes it seems as though for every step we take forward, we're taking 20 steps back. And sometimes it seems like we're not winning, but that is an illusion. Everybody say illusion. It's an illusion. Because what happens sometimes is whatever we focus on sometimes becomes our reality, be it positive or negative. Lucas talked about believing in the possible, and I absolutely agree. But I believe that we need to believe in the impossible. See, in 1954, I believe Roger Bannister was the guy who ran the first 4-minute mile. Now, the thing about it is, at that particular time, no human being had ever done anything like that. To run the 4-minute mile was saying that you had the lungs of a thoroughbred. And there were many people who looked at Roger Bannister and told him that he was insane, he was crazy, that it was impossible. But Roger Bannister said, you know what? If I can expand my consciousness and have what I call satellite thinking, then maybe it's probable and possible that I can do something that's never been done, but it first started with a thought. And when he began to think about doing this consciously and even unconsciously, I'm sure he doubted himself, but he says, I'm going to condition myself and put myself in the right arena where I'm going to do something that's never been done. And if I fail, then I just fail. But Roger Bannister ran that 4-minute mile. He did what had never been done. And because he did it, what he was able to do, he was able to rise the level of consciousness among all those individuals who one time did not believe in him. And after he did it, you know what happened? Other people started doing it. High school kid Olympians, and now it's just standard practice. We talk about Kennedy. Do you know when Kennedy talked about going to the moon, do you know how absurd that was at that particular time? Imagine. A president comes on and says, we're going to put ourselves in a vehicle, even though we do not have the technology. We're going to put ourselves in a vehicle and we're going to go to the moon. Can you imagine that? And he was talking about going to the moon during a time when the technology wasn't even there. But you know what was there in his mind? It was the belief that it could happen. And he rallied the scientists together. He gave them a task. He gave them a challenge and said, look, whatever we have to do, we're going to do this. We're going to make it happen. His belief in doing something impossible was validation for others who had the skills and the abilities to rise their consciousness and raise their consciousness to a level that they would develop the technology to take us from the earth to the moon. And we've been going to the moon ever since. But yet some of us do not believe that we can make a difference in the life of children. Some of us believe that what we do doesn't matter, and that is only an illusion. Trust me. How do I know? Lydia Joyner is sitting right there. She's living proof that it works. I stand before you as not anything special. I stand before you as validation that one person who cared enough for me, as Hallmark says, to care enough to give the very best, took a young, black, snotty-nosed, inner-nosed kid who was in foster care, physically, mentally, sexually abused, special ed, took him, molded him, instilled in him a seed of belief that totally transformed his life. She was the catalyst. She is my hero. And I shouldn't be here, but I am here. So for me, I sat there listening to Lucas. I listened to your story, and I thought about her. And for me, it is real. Because to be a kid who nobody wanted, and to be standing here alive today, I am so grateful for all of you, because without you, there would be no me. So I take it seriously. I take it passionately. I leave everything on the table. Many of my friends who don't understand what I do because they think I live this life of fame and fortune. Oh, my God, you're on a plane and you're doing all this. You're going to Hollywood and you're just out there speaking to people. And oh, my God, it's so great. They have no idea what I do. They have no idea the sacrifice I make. They have no idea the emotional trauma that comes associated with working in this profession, because there are many people who do not believe in me, but you give me strength, you give me validation that what I say and what I stand on matters. And at the end of my life, when I exit here and I stand before the big cheese, as we call him, or Gandhi, or whoever, that, whatever your belief level is, I believe in a higher power. When I stand before him and he asks me, what did you do? All I can say is I tried to help your children. I tried to help kids like me to be better. See, my mother was 24 years of age when she had me, and my mother had serious, serious problems. Emotional, sexual. My mother was a woman of the street, which means my mother sold her body for money. And my mother was addicted to drugs, and my mother was very depressed. And my mother, being 24 years of age in 1968, had a very critical decision to make, and that is, how do I take care of two boys, my older brother Tim and me, and function with all of this emotional trauma in my life? What do I do? My mother made the decision to place me in foster care and place me up for adoption, and she kept my older brother. So from her womb, I went directly into foster care. And I wish I could say that my experience was great, but see, the day is not about being a victim. The day is all about becoming a victor. But let me share this story with you. I went from her womb directly into foster care. My first set of foster parents were loving people from what they tell me from my files, and I was shuffled in and out of various foster homes for 8 years. And my last set of foster parents were non-traditional. Everybody say old school. Simply meaning my father was born in 1918, and my adopted mother was born in 1930. And so my father was one of those guys. He was one of 9 children, and my father was not a touchy-feely guy. My father was not emotional. My father would not have watched Lifetime. He would not have done that. He wouldn't have been on Oprah. My dad wouldn't do anything like that. My dad was the Archie Bunker type of guy. My dad was a blue-collar worker. He worked in a factory. My grandfather was a coal miner from the hills of Kentucky, so all my dad knew was he was a provider, and my dad worked hard to the bone every day of his life. He was a good provider, but he was not there emotionally. My father went to work at 6 in the morning, came home at 5, and my father drank profusely. My father was what we call an alcoholic, but he didn't know it. My mother was the disciplinarian. My mother was the one who actually ran the empire, and the empire was our house. Now, my father would come and say things like, Mary, you know that I'm the head of this house, girl, and you're going to do what I tell you to do. And my mom didn't play that. My mom was kind of crazy. Anybody got a crazy mama? Anybody? Come on. Anybody got a crazy mama? I'm just saying. My mama was, extreme. She did not play. So one day, I really realized who was really in control of my house. It was not my father, though he provided the money. It was my mother. And it was my mother because my mother said this thing to my father and totally changed my paradigm about who was running things. My father comes in the house and he's in this arrogant mood and dinner's not ready on time. And for some reason, Dad doesn't like what Mama's fixing. So my dad says something to the effect that, look, I told you I wanted this and that and everything. I come in here, a man can't get what he wants. Woman, you better do what I tell you to do. I'm running this house. Now, my mom simply says, well, let me tell you something, okay? Now that's how my mom was. You think you're running something? Let me tell you something, okay? You may be running things, but you may be the head of this house, honey, but I am the neck because the neck will turn the head any way it wants to go. So after she said that, I knew that Mama was running things. I knew that. And after that day, I never tested my mother again. But see, back in the 1930s, my mother had her own trauma. My mother's father was a hustler. He was a numbers runner. He ran moonshine, and he did illegal types of things. And so what began to happen was that my mother growing up saw a lot of trauma in her life. She saw her father beat up people. She saw her father do crazy things. And it was trauma that was unresolved in my mother's life and in her mind. And my mother was not able to handle that. So Mom would have these outbursts of rage. And unfortunately, if my father was in the way or I was in the way, we were the reciprocal of that abuse. And so growing up in that environment, I knew that I was probably a mistake. I knew that I was probably one of those kids that nobody wanted because maybe there was something wrong with me. Maybe there was something in my life that happened that my real mother didn't want me. So I put a lot of blame on myself. Like a lot of the times our kids put blames on themselves, and the only way that they're going to survive that is through the eyes of you. And I remember growing up in that system and seeing this domestic violence and feeling bad about myself, and then